very much. It's a privilege to chair this last but not the least session. First of all, let me introduce Amarjit Singh, former Secretary, Ministry of Water Resources, and he'll talk about water sector in India, challenges and prospects. Sir.
Thank you. Wonderful to meet you, friends. Being inside the institution, I don't know whether you realize that people like me come to this place as a place of pilgrimage. We come to this place with so much respect because there's so much to do together. I think what I wanted to say, your director set the tone very nicely about the whole thing, that we need to work together on a large number of areas. Yeah, I want to start with two small anecdotes because I think they'll set the tone. The institution in which you are studying, what makes such institutions? The other day somebody was telling me, one of the professors was telling me that Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's grandfather was the first VC of Calcutta University, right? So in those days the system was, if you had to pass PhD, you had to get one supervisor either from Oxford or the Cambridge University. One of the supervisors had to be there. So they were examining one of the students at Calcutta University, and the supervisor from Cambridge wrote that this boy is not good enough for Cambridge. But since he comes from a colonial university, we may award him the PhD. And Dr. Mukherjee took strong objection to this. He said, if he's not good for Cambridge, he's not good for Calcutta University. He has to be good for Cambridge if my university has to award a PhD to him. Those are the people who have made these institutions, the fruits of which you are enjoying here today. My talk today is about the water sector, with which I've been involved with the last 4 years. And I think there is a lot which you, the water sector, the various institutions which in the water sector like the National Institute of Hydrology, the Central WPRS Water and Power Research Station at Pune, the Central Soil and Materials Research Station in Delhi, which they are working on, which they are grappling with. I think there's a lot which we could do together. I'll just give you a brief overview of a study which was conducted by the Water Resources Group on what has been happening with the sector. This study looks at what is the potential, where are we going as we reach the year 2050. So look at some of these figures. The global gap in the demand and supply of water is going to be about 40%. If you look at this, the global gap is going to be 40%. The global GDP which is going to be at risk is going to be 45%. The World Economic Forum reports, they have listed water as the top 3 risk factors in the development of the world, in the global development agenda. There are almost 75% jobs which depend on the water sector in some way or the other. Almost 1.5 billion people are employed in water or related natural resource sectors. So you can imagine the huge amount of people who are dependent on water. There are 2.7 billion people who suffer from water shortages as on today, and this number is going to increase as we go along. And 2.4 billion people, most of them in our country, in Africa and other countries, who suffer from various diseases because they don't get access to clean drinking water, right? And the population which is likely to be living in these areas, and unfortunately most of us in our country who are likely to live in these areas, going to be about 4 billion by the year 2050. So there's a huge amount of issue which is involved around the water sector which we need to look at very carefully. The basis for all this is given below. I'm leaving my presentation here. People can look for details if they are interested. So what's happening? If you look at the data on the dietary water requirements, which gives you a fair indication on what is the level of water consumption in various parts. As you go from the level of prosperity goes up, the level of water consumption goes up. So as our country becomes more prosperous, the level of water consumption is likely to go up very, very high. That is because we're going to shift from agriculture to industry, from normal vegetarian diet maybe to non-vegetarian diet, which is going to take up a lot of water. So this is one of the issues which we need to look at. The other part which is interesting is, if you look at this figure, in India, most of the water, almost 80% of the water is consumed by the irrigation sector, almost 80% of the water. The same is case with the sub-Saharan Africa, the Latin America. However, if you look at Europe and North America, most of the water is consumed by the domestic sector as well as the industrial sector, apart from the agriculture sector, which is of course going to be very, very important. Now the issue here is, in South Asia, the big bar which you see of the water consumption in agriculture sector is going to shift to this industrial sector, which means our requirement of food is going to increase, but we are going to have less and less water for the agriculture sector. So just to give you a little figure, currently we have about 270 million metric tons of food grain production, right? The estimates show that by the year 2050, our requirement of food grain is going to be 450 million metric tons. 272 now, it is going to go up to 450 million metric tons. While the requirement of food is going to really boom, and that's the normal economic experience, as people become richer, their first take is on good, nutritious diet for themselves and for their children. But the amount of water which is going to be left for agriculture is going to be less and less, because most of the water would be taken by the industrial sector. So I think that's one real issue as we develop on the path of industrialization, which is going to confront us. Now if you look at the total consumption of water is about 4500 BCM, right? It is likely to go up by a huge factor and going to go up to 6900 BCM, right, by the year 2030. So you can imagine how much more water we're going to require in the world. Now this is a full 40% above. If you take into account the e-flows and the return flows, this is 40% above the existing water availability. So you can imagine how this water is going to be organized unless we start using our water very, very effectively, and that's where all of you could play a very big role. The 40% is the global average. There are a large number of countries and clusters where the shortfall is more than 50%. So, and India, south of India especially, west of India especially, are areas which come in that bracket. You can see here the way demand for water is going from, in the municipal sector, 600 to 900, industry from 800 to 1500, and agriculture from 3100 to 4500 BCM, right? The overall availability of water remains almost constant. If you look at this next slide, the overall availability of water is almost constant. It doesn't shift unless we start using our water much, much more effectively. Now agriculture is going to take about, it is currently using 71%, it is going to go down to slightly, marginally to 65%, but in a much bigger basket. Most of this water is going to be tied to food provision, right? And in countries like India, sub-Saharan Africa and China, these are going to be the major consumers of water and agriculture. The industrial demand, which is today 16%, is likely to go up to 22%. And China is one country which through its thermal power plant is pushing that demand, and most of the consumption is going for that sector. The domestic use will decrease slightly from 14 to 12%, but in a much bigger package. So that's the picture. The availability of water remains constant. So as a result, currently we are using 744 BCM in India. If we reach a level of 1500 BCM, the gap is going to be 754 BCM. So there is a huge responsibility on all of us to make sure that that water is being used effectively. And I want to show you some case studies after that on what has been done within the country and other places to show you what's really happening. And you can see the industry share, which is 8%, is going to go up to 13%. And agriculture share, which is about 85%, will come down to 80%. So less water, but more requirement for food. So that's the kind of scenario we are going to be grappling with. Of the total water which is available, this part is important. Out of the 744 BCM of water which we are using currently, almost 500 BCM comes from surface water, from the rivers, canals and all those aspects, and 233 BCM, extremely critical water. I'll just show you why it comes from the groundwater sector. So we need to look at both these sources of water in a conjoined manner. Though much less it looks, but it performs a key role in the agriculture sector in our country and globally. India today draws 25% of the global groundwater. It is more than China and US put together. So that's the kind of dynamics which you are working in. Unless we start working on it on an immediate basis, there is going to be a very critical time ahead for all of us. Okay. The good part is, it is not that all the people who went before us, they were all wasting their time. Not so. People like Dr. Swaminathan, the irrigation engineers, the farmers of our country, they played a key role. From a food basket where everybody thought people would die of hunger, we were actually, when I was a student of class 8, 9 in the 70s, a proud Prime Minister like Mrs. Gandhi had to go to US to get food under the PL 480. And I, as a child, I used to feel ashamed that my Prime Minister has to beg for food. That was the scenario, 50 million metric tons. And we have gone up to 272 million metric tons. But while we become food secure, which is wonderful, we have become increasingly water insecure, right? And that's the crux of the problem. We become food secure, but water insecure. But that's the way, going forward, we need to look at this aspect carefully because we still need food. And water is going to be less and less for the agriculture sector. So as we intensify urbanization, industrialization, with increasing population, less and less water is going to be available to our farmers. Look at this figure very carefully. When we became free, the per capita availability of water was almost 5,000 cubic meters per person per year. We were in a very good state. It has come down to almost stress levels of 1,200 cubic meters per person per year. What is worse is there are a number of places in Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Rajasthan, where the availability of water today is almost 300 to 400 cubic meters per person per year. So that scenario, we need, our country has a huge spatial and temporal distribution problem. We get all our rainfall in a few days, few weeks. It is spread, Northeast having very good rainfall, Rajasthan having 300, Gujarat having 400 mm of rainfall. So we have to make sure that that aspect is kept in mind. Okay. So what has been done? What is it that we can do? And that's why I'm here today. And I said I come to this place as a place of pilgrimage. Because I see in you guys as people who can make a difference. So what is happening today? What is happening is, while we are very good in creating the infrastructure, in using that infrastructure in a sustainable manner, we have totally failed. The engineers are very happy in doing large water resources projects, the Bakhra Dam, the Sardar Sarovar project, Hirakud project, Tungabhadra project, number of projects. But is that water actually reaching the field of the farmers? And I think that's where your real knowledge of what the three gentlemen prior to me were explaining how they were able to use for the transportation, urban transportation, that's where it could really make a difference. I mean, imagine Sardar Sarovar project started in 80s. We have just now completed it. How many years? 37 years. Now, if that water is not reaching the fields of the farmers, I think it's criminal. And that's where we've failed. We've created big projects, but that water is not reaching the fields of the farmers. And that's what we need to take care of. So we need to enhance the productivity of use. We need to make sure that the drip and sprinkler micro irrigation is there. We need to ensure that we have the best germplasm and seed which is suitable for our rain-fed agriculture. We need to ensure that. And once we've grown the crop, we need to ensure that the crop sustains. It can be utilized. It is not subject to pest attacks, right? And the other important part is, I go to a number of parts of the country, the farmers have grown huge amount of potatoes, onions, tomatoes, and there is nobody to buy them. The cost of production is much more than the cost which they get in the market. So I've seen actually tomatoes littered on the roadside in a number of places. How can we ensure the material which our farmers produce with so much effort is properly packaged, processed, and sold so that the farmers get a good price? That is the key issue. I think that's where all these wonderful gentlemen who've worked on this area, that's where we need to work on, right? It so happens sometimes that where you've grown tomatoes, there is no market. So if you go 400 kilometers on the other side, the tomatoes are selling at 30 rupees or 50 rupees a kg. It happened in Amritsar. There were no buyers for tomatoes. In Pakistan, they were selling for 300 rupees per kg. So how can we ensure that this gap, and you guys are actually equipped to do that. Through the ENAM, e-markets, how can we ensure the farmer gets the best deal for his product? Now, look at this one. So we build and neglect. We have to break that cycle. We have to break that cycle, as has been done by a number of states. Fortunately, a number of states have done it. Look at this. If you can use your existing infrastructure well, which irrigates about, we have a total of 140 million hectares in a country on which agriculture is done, out of which only 60 million hectares is irrigated. Rest is all rain-fed, right? If we could use that infrastructure which is there, we could get 2.5 times of that value which we are getting today. Let me just give you an example. Madhya Pradesh, our Bimaru state, right? They put their act together. I would commend their website to them. For every project, you see the project, what is the design capacity, how much water is actually being delivered to the fields of the farmers. They did that exercise. They're doing it regularly. This year, Madhya Pradesh grew more food grains than Punjab. Unthinkable 10 years ago. It was just unthinkable. But they've done it. The agriculture which used to grow at 2%, 1.5%, 3%, today grows at 15% in the state of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. So imagine what can be done. There are possibilities. We can do things, but we need to put an effort. We need to join hands. You and the country needs to get together. The policymakers need to get together. The farmers need to get together if you have to really make a difference. So what has MP done? They first ensured that all their projects which were incomplete were completed. Just to give you an idea, in India we are spending 77,000 crores to complete 99 projects, which will give India 7.6 million hectares of irrigated area. They were lying in various states of incomplete. So if you had good picture on them, good data on them, action would be taken. we need power supply to agriculture. While Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, they draw huge amounts of groundwater. There is a huge amount of groundwater available in Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Assam, which is not being drawn because there is no power. Diesel is too expensive. So you understand? There we are making it critical. Here there is a lot of amount of water available which we are not utilizing because of these gaps, right? So what they did was they made sure that the canal protocols were properly maintained, canals were maintained, water was actually delivered, whatever investments were required based on that analysis. How much is design capacity? What percentage actually delivered? Why not 100%? What needs to be done for that? So that we started, right? No deferred maintenance. If any maintenance needs to be carried out, it was done, right? These three were wonderful things. They started benchmarking each of their projects. The chief engineer had to answer if a project was not delivering the design capacity. And they made a wonderful difference, right? And he was not only punished, but he was given the money if there was a gap somewhere where infrastructure needed to be strengthened or maintenance needed to be carried out. First time the bureaucracy was made accountable to the farmers. आपको 2 million hectare के projects दिए हुए हैं. Why so much area is not being irrigated? What's the problem? First time the water user association, the people themselves delivered water to the fields. And what they did, right? They made a law that the Harjan who never got the water has to be the vice president of the water user association. So they ensured the tail end first got the water and the front end, which used to get water always, they got water last. So what happened? The rich farmers who used to get water earlier first, they got water last. Obviously the water level was reduced because the tail end farmers were getting water. So the richer farmers moved to the micro irrigation. Wonderful. A win-win for everybody. They're using their water much more effectively, but the tail end farmer is getting water. So this is what they did, and then they sustained between the politicians, chief minister and the officials and the engineers, they sustained the whole system and made sure the benefit was actually delivered. But still, look at this factor. I won't spend much more time on this, but Punjab produces almost 39.5 quintals per hectare. The state of MP, after so much progress, still does 15. So you can imagine the huge slack in the system, right? If the slack was covered, I mean wheat is 4 tons, whereas Ukraine grows 13 tons per hectare. So there's a huge amount of slack in the system, and that's where people like you need to work on. People like you need to look at what's happening, why the slack is there, okay? Some states have done some wonderful work. Karnataka has started a project in Ramthal where they've started micro irrigation, cold chain infrastructure, packing houses, processing plants, and making sure that the water, which is quite expensive, is used for high value crops. So we're looking at number of such experiences which are happening in different parts of the country. This is one part. We need to ensure that the 80% of water which goes to agriculture is utilized well. That's the first part. The second part is because our surface water did not deliver, people used groundwater. People did not wait for you. People started moving to groundwater. So look at what they did, right? Because the water was reliable, it was available on demand, there was greater water control, they shifted to groundwater. So they grew high value crops, but at a hugely unsustainable manner. So 80% of the increase in groundwater in the last 10 to 15 years has been from groundwater. Today almost 66% irrigation depends on groundwater, and 80% of drinking water in the rural area comes from groundwater. So they shifted to what the surface water could not do in 200 years, the groundwater has done in 50 years. So put it this way. But it has been hugely unsustainable. What that has done is 40% of the blocks are overdrawn and 16% are critical. If the annual recharge is 100, they're drawing about 200 or even 300 in some cases, that much amount of water. So it delivered, but at a huge cost. We need to ensure that while it keeps on delivering, it is sustainable, right? So what we are doing, Dr. Saha will speak more on this. We started doing a mapping of the aquifers. This is a mapping in Thanesar. What does it shows is the water which is available at 10 meters post-monsoon and 15 meters pre-monsoon in just about 18 years is available at 40 and 45 meters. That's what has happened in Haryana. And similar is the case in Punjab, Western UP. The total water which is annual recharge, which is storage, which is available was almost 3,200 MCM. It has gone down by 25% to 2,500 MCM. So this study is being done all over the country. We have to do about 23 lakh kilometers. We've done about 6 to 7 lakh square kilometers, but that work is going on at the moment. But this gives a picture. The idea is to share this picture with the local people, share the evidence with them, and let them take the decisions how they want to use that water. Do they want to reach this situation, or they want to use the water in a better manner? So 6.3 lakh kilometers done. So we hope to do 13 by the year 2020. But the idea is to share that water. Just give you one example. If you go to Kudalur in Tamil Nadu, the seawater was increasing because so much groundwater was being drawn in that vacuum. The seawater was increasing. When that scientific data was shared with the farmers, they decided themselves, we're not going to overdraw water. And it really made a difference to the seawater, saline water ingress into that soil. So what we're doing is we're doing it in a very scientific manner. Saha will speak. These are the most overdrawn areas: Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and the southern states. So the idea is that we should first do the mapping of these areas and share it with the farmers, right? That's the second part. Let the farmers know what's happening to their groundwater level. The third part is making sure that the groundwater is recharged. This is why I'm standing here today. Dr. Abhijit and his group, they did a wonderful work with the GRACE satellite, and they showed that this policy change has actually made a difference in the south and west of India. The states which are sensible, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and the southern states, it has really made a difference. So that is provided thanks to that study which your institute carried out, academics of your institute carried out. It has provided a lot more funds for this sector. And I think we need to build on that study. So we are working on a groundwater model bill so that people know where they are going, how they can do better. And the government in this budget has approved 2,600 crores for a Atal Bhujal Yojana to make sure that such overcharged blocks are recharged, right? So this is the study which our friend did, Somendra Bhanja and Abhijit and their team did. It has, but look at these figures. Look at these figures from Gujarat, one of the worst states as far as groundwater level is concerned. Once they put their act together, when I feel most happy that the semi-critical blocks went down from 62 to 9 over a period of 12 years. This is scientific data, right? The overexploited blocks went down from 30 to 23, critical from 13 to 6. So it is possible to make a difference. But we need to measure what's going on. We need to show it to the decision makers that your money is going down the drain or is making a difference. And that's where, and states like Andhra Pradesh, Abhijit is aware, they have a system whereby they know at regular intervals what's happening to the critical blocks. Water level going up, down, piezometers are installed, they get the data at regular intervals. This is another area because if you draw more and more groundwater, obviously your energy sector is at collateral damages there. So Gujarat did a wonderful job. They have separate feeders. We'll provide water for 8 hours. We have to have metered connection. We'll give you subsidized water off peak hours when industry and domestic consumers are not using it. It made a huge difference. There are implementation issues. It is difficult. But the Chief Minister who did it is the Prime Minister now. Also remember that. He did it in Gujarat. He showed it can be done in Gujarat. Agriculture grows at 13%. GB is one of the first electricity boards to make profit. Farmers are happy, GB is happy, state is happy, and the person who did it is also happy. So there is a huge scope for doing it, but we need real strength, political, technical, bureaucratic strength. We need to, as I mentioned, I won't spend more time because I know I'm going beyond the time, but we need to make sure that the eastern part is solarized with a lot of sun, lot of groundwater available. And we need to ensure that the subsidy is available for bigger pump sets so that water can be, I'll finish, water can be provided to the larger farmers so that why waste? If Arup can afford, let him have a bigger pump, let him supply water to the whole village, and let him provide the excess energy which is available through solarization to the grid. It has been put together in Gujarat in a block. It has already been done. I think there is a scope for doing that in other areas. So that's one area. Look at the possibility. It could replace 2.7 million pumps, generate about 10,000 megawatt of power and irrigate about 20 million hectares. Sardar Sarovar does only 6 million hectares after so many years, right? Government has fortunately, Saha was involved in preparing that proposal. Government has fortunately approved that and a lot of money has been put for that proposal. This is something which we need to look at very carefully. The states of Gujarat, the states of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, who are short in water, they are exporting virtual water to the eastern states. And the eastern states which are excess in water, they are importing water. That's what we are doing. So if we can find a way of incentivizing the farmers here or making appropriate changes in the minimum support price and farmers growing this and farmers in that part who done good work so far, who have fed our country, are given high value crops which can be used for the export market or something. I think this could work. In the western sector, what we could do is we could use the solarization to reduce the load on the electricity boards, right? Where already the connections are there, people are drawing groundwater. But we have to make sure that the east does not use water like the north used. It has to be more sustainable. That we have to make sure. But solar energy has the real possibility of becoming a lucrative crop for the farmers in the years to come, right? It could become a crop. The farmers would need support on both sides. The richer farmers in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP are used to a much higher standard of living. They'll need to shift to export-oriented crops, as I mentioned, or other issues, but this could be done, right? This is fantastic. We keep on talking of the smart cities. Our cities generate 15 BCM of waste, which could irrigate almost 3 million hectares. We need to link these smart cities. I'll give you an example of Kota. Kota is situated on a dam on River Chambal. Population of 15 lakhs. Many of you may have come from Kota because it's a huge industry for tuitions. The entire muck is thrown into the River Chambal. It is dirtied. The dam is reserved for the thermal power station. People don't get good water. People get the Chambal dirty water. So easily you could recycle the sewage waste, use it for the dam, and the Chambal could be prevented the horrid state in which it is, and people could get good water. So there is a real possibility of doing that. I think we need to look at that issue and work on that issue, and it could be used for a number of measures. The other part is I just want to share this example. In Bombay, you might get water at 8 rupees per cubic meter for a nice swimming pool in a good locality. But if a poor slum dweller wants that much water, he may have to pay 800 rupees for a tanker or 80 rupees for a cubic meter. So we need to bridge that gap and make sure everybody is able to utilize country's natural resources in a sustainable manner. This could really be a component of the smart cities project. Israel utilizes 86% of its wastewater. We use hardly anything. US does 1%. So various ways in the wastewater could be utilized: horticulture, recharging groundwater. In Israel, they actually recycle the water and store it in the ground as a groundwater. They are so sure of their quality of the water that they put it back into the groundwater. We could get energy from the slums. For the sludge, we could have soil conditioners or fertilizers, aquaculture also, but we need to work on it, right? This is another area, might look like a pipe dream, but the President Minister is very keen on this. And 3 projects I'm happy to share with you, Ken Betwa, Partapi, Narmada and Damanganga Pinjal, are almost ready now. The states have agreed to do that project. Ken Betwa is between UP and MP. It feeds Bundelkhand, one of the poorest regions in the country. Partapi Narmada feeds Saurashtra, North Gujarat, which are water starved, and Damanganga Pinjal will meet the water needs of Mumbai till the year 2070. We need to fix municipal leakages. In Israel, it is 5%. In our country, 60%. We need to fix that. We need to use water effectively for the industries, you know that more than me. We need to get economic rates for water. Cheap water is actually expensive because no repair is done, no maintenance is done. We need to regulate the water sector. And we need to make sure there are advocates. In Israel, the Prime Minister's first job is to advocate for the water sector, right? We teach our children, rain, rain, go away, come again some other day, with so little water. And their poems start, please come rain, every day, every minute we need you. We need that kind of advocacy in our country also. The Niti Aayog has done this index, which they are going to rate all the different states. I won't spend time on it. You can see that in the presentation. This is some area where all the students could work on. It would make a huge difference. If you measure it, you can do anything. If it is hazy, nobody knows what's happening, nothing will happen. We need to do a proper water auditing. What's happening? We made a small start, but we need to work on it. It would make a huge difference once people know what's happening to the water levels, how effectively it is utilized, how contaminated it is. It could make a huge difference. So just to reiterate my last slide, we need to use water as a national resource, from the poor supply areas to the areas which are unserved. You cannot draw groundwater unlimited. There has to be some norm for that. We need to leverage federalism. If Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh have done good work, we need to share it with all the states. And we need to incentivize other states if they put in place a reform process, right? We need to improve our irrigation works, make sure, let the people run them, water user associations. We need to ensure that the Jyotirgram Yojana, like Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh has done, is done in other states. Shift wheat rice eastwards, use solar power where electrical and diesel is not available. Smart cities, use the wastewater. Put pricing and cost recovery on water. It is actually works. And we need to train our people. Just work on hydrology and hydrogeology will not be with due apologies. We need to look at the whole gamut of management of the irrigation projects. We need to have effective regulation and we need to have respect for water. Thank you for your time. Wonderful to be with you all, and I'll be happy to answer.
Wonderful. We have time for questions.
Yes, sir.
Is interlinking of this river a good idea?
See, there's nothing, you can pick up the good parts out of it. You can pick up the good parts out of it. The whole concept may not be good. But wherever it is possible, for example, Bundelkhand today, if you go to Delhi, every underbridge is flooded with people who don't get a livelihood in Bundelkhand and going to. If Kane and Betwa can be connected through Bundelkhand, I don't see any problem with that. It may not be a good idea everywhere, but if it can take water to Mumbai till the year 2070, the water which flows into the sea, the water which flows, the whole water does not need to be tapped. We need water for the sea also, for the aquatic animals, aquatic life. But wherever, I think we need to look at that issue very, very critically. But if it really takes water to Bundelkhand, I don't see any issues with that. Yes, sir. Abhijit? So it's...
You mentioned that there might be a possibility of leveraging shifting of rice and wheat from Western India to Eastern India. Now, I traveled through parts of India and Punjab maybe a year back, and I was amazed about the number of rice cultivation, mostly basmati, that is going on in Kuch, the Haryana Bangalore area. And I was sitting with one of the field officers, I think Dr. Shah was also there. And they said that, this basmati is not for local people, this is for export. So it's pretty much a cash crop rather than, food crop. Now, if you propose that to get shifted to Eastern India, as per climate, water, whatever, how do you incentivize for doing that? Because that's the basic thing.
Wonderful question. That's why I'm here today. Saha has prepared a proposal for 95 districts, we'll talk more about it, which have 10% irrigation now, only 10%. And these are all the districts in the eastern part of the country. The proposal is to use incentives for providing solar pumps so that those farmers who are neither having electricity nor diesel purchasing power, they can use solar power to irrigate their fields. You have to make an effort, you have to make a beginning somewhere. The water which is used for ordinary rice, maybe that can come here. It has happened in Madhya Pradesh. It happened in Gujarat in a big way. You saw the figures. I mean, you know more than me. Yeah? You have to make a beginning somewhere. You give me 1 minute more, Dada. I just want to tell you a small story. The Chief Minister of Gujarat, the present Prime Minister, he took a first meeting as Chief Minister. You must hear this. He made all the secretaries make a presentation. The Secretary of Agriculture said that agriculture has grown at 2%. He showed a trend chart. And then foolishly, all of us said to him, "Sir, you don't know, agriculture can't grow more than 3%. I myself included. This is 2001-2, when he just took over as Chief Minister of Gujarat. He said, this will not do. You were spending 25% of the resources, and you were telling me agriculture can't grow at more than 2%. That was the first project he took up. Soil cards, separate electric feeders, bori bunds, check dams, percolation tanks, educating the farmers, bringing the agriculture universities to the farmers. You are aware the agriculture today grows in Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat at more than 10 to 12%. So somebody has to make a start somewhere. At that time, everybody thought 2%, 3%, 4% bahut ho gaya. Today, it grows at 15%. And it has grown in a sustained manner in Madhya Pradesh. The problem is how to use that produce. So you have to make a beginning somewhere. It might be difficult, but you have to make a beginning.
So, what I was getting at is, if you shift it from Haryana, what about the farmers?
Sir, I mentioned you have to give them high value crops. You have to incentivize them with high value crops so that they can maintain their income levels. I mean, that's where people like you could make a huge difference. Agriculture scientists could make a huge difference. But at least let these people, where 56 BCM of virtual water is being exported from Punjab, Haryana and Western UP to this part of the country, eastern part, at least let this stop here. It is stopped in Madhya Pradesh. They don't need any procurement now. They make their own procurement of rice, wheat, maize and all those things. Dada, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Arup.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.